This is the Volvo V60 Cross Country in the Vapor Gray Metallic. And in this video, you're gonna learn everything you need to know about the V60. Gonna be covering off technology, what's going on underneath the hood, interior space, and everything in between. Pricing for the V60 in Canada starts at around $58,200 versus $53,500 down in the US, and the price is going to go up from there depending on which trim level of the vehicle that you choose and how you have it spec'd out. This is the ultra trim level, and there are some other things that you can add on, including an upgraded audio system and massage chair seats, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Underneath the hood of the V60, there are two different powertrains that are available. So you're either looking at the B5 or the T8. 2-liter turbocharged engine is going to be the option for the B5, and then there's the 2-liter plug-in hybrid available for the T8. This one's the regular gas engine, so 2-liter turbocharged engine, which pushes out 247 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque, which is pretty respectable. So, got to get myself back up to highway speed, and we'll go in 3, 2, and... 100. Nice. So there's no dedicated sport mode inside of this ride, unfortunately, but knowing that there's a manual mode, if you're the type of driver where you like a little bit more precision as you go, or you want more control over the gear that you're in, birds, just go and knowing, you do have that available as an option. But if you want the best possible performance inside of the V60, you're gonna wanna look for the plug-in hybrid instead. 455 horsepower, combined 523 pound-feet of torque. That baby can fly, and because it's a plug-in hybrid, you'd also have fully electric miles. But it is a pricier option in comparison to the regular 2-liter engine. But the design of the engine is pretty good. I like the way Volvo's done it. There's a nice simple engine cover, and then you can top up your wiper fluid along the top side. And the warranty inside of the Volvo world is pretty solid. Your basic and your powertrain are a 4-year, 50,000 mile, 80,000 kilometer. The hybrid electric components get bumped up to 8 years, 100,000 mile, 160,000 kilometers. But you just want to make sure you take care of your ride. Take it in for regularly scheduled maintenance, some regular oil changes to get the best possible life out of this thing. I still can't believe how high this hood sits though. It's kind of ridiculous. The V60 Cross has 3 primary trim levels in Canada and 3 different ones in the States. So you're looking at the Core, the Plus, or the Ultra trim, with the option for the Polestar Engineered, which is a plug-in hybrid instead. You're only going to find it, regardless of the trim level, in all-wheel drive, which realistically, if you live in Canada like me, or if you live in northern states where you're going to get some snow, all-wheel drive handles so much nicer in comparison to front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive in the wintertime. You're going to want to get a good set of snow tires either way though. There are a series of different wheel sizes that are available. So it's either going to be 18s, 19s, or 20-inch wheels, again, depending on the trim level of the ride that you're in. I'm personally not too crazy about the style of these wheels. If they're blacked out, I just think that would add a touch of class to this wheel. That's just a matter of personal preference. The front end style of the V60 is pretty simple. You've got a matte black on the lower part of the bumper, along with a little wrap for the front fog lamps. There are LED headlamps inside of this ride, and the LEDs at night look pretty good. The grille inside of the V60 is also straightforward, with an emblem that's actually heated, which is kind of cool. And then technology-wise, outside of that emblem, you're going to find the forward sensing system and the front-facing camera. So there is a 360 camera, and that's in the majority of trim levels of the V60. I personally am a big fan of those park sensors, but if you don't like them, you've always got the option of disabling that beep if it drives you nuts. The V60 is a wagon, and if you're taking it on a trip, you do have a boatload of cargo space, and then you can also find roof rack rails as well. So if you wanted to throw in a carrier, that is available. And then getting inside, I'm 6 feet tall for reference. Easy enough. Getting into the first row, getting into the second. Equally as easy. And one nice thing is that there are assist handles along all 4 doors. Driver passenger side. The side view mirrors inside of the V60 are power folding. They've got turn signals in them. There's also a side mounted camera in most trims. They're auto dimming, and there's also a blind spot monitoring system. They're feature packed. As long as you've got the key fob on you, it's intelligent access. You can push there to lock the door. You slide in order to unlock. Along the door, you're going to find driver seat memory, along with this one that has the upgraded audio system. I'll touch on that in a second. But outside of that, all of these are going to be the same across the lineup. So you can adjust your side view, your windows, and kill power to the rear windows and doors. There's some storage down low, a trunk release. These are just your regular carpeted mats. I definitely recommend upgrading to the thermoplastic rubber trays though. This is one of the many interior color choices you're going to find, but the only downside here is, yeah, you can see it. It's got a few thousand kilometers on it, but the seat is also showing signs of dirt. So that's the only reason why I wouldn't get a lighter interior, but it looks good. You've got power adjustable seats. Ooh. Taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Volvo V60. This is the regular gas engine version of the vehicle, so it's a mild hybrid. There is the option for the plug-in hybrid version though, and the gauges will look slightly different there. But outside of that, the functionality is going to be the exact same. So let's dive in and I'll show you what you need to know. Steering wheel inside of the ride is going to be heated. So along the bottom part of the screen, you could hit the steering wheel icon there, and there are 3 unique levels for the heated steering wheel, and it's heated all the way around. The steering wheel inside of the ride is also manual telescoping, so just in between the steering wheel columns there, between your legs, there's a release, and you're going to go in, out, up, and down to find that perfect position. Once you do, click it in order to lock it back into place. And there are so many different things that you need to know, but one thing I'll point out that's not steering wheel related, along the driver's side door, you've got the memory buttons here, and that's the same way along the passenger. So what you're going to do is get your driver's seat set up the way that you'd like. There's also an individual switch that you can hit in order to turn on massage seats if that was available, but you can adjust the side bolsters along the seat cushion, you can adjust your lumbar support a bit more, and even adjust out the leg cushion. So you get that set up the way that you'd like to. You're going to set up your side view mirror the way that you'd like to using the switches here. And then once you've got that set up, you're going to hit M, 1 or 2, and that's going to remember your own personal profile. So if multiple people are driving the vehicle, very useful to know. The stick on the left-hand side is going to be for your lights. So you've got a few different light modes that are available. You've got your off mode along the very bottom versus your auto mode along the very top. And when you're in auto, you can go up 1 more level, and that's going to put you into an auto headlamp mode. And what that means is that if the vehicle recognizes your high beams are needed, it's automatically going to turn them on. If somebody's oncoming, it's going to turn them off before turning them right back on again. So you can go into your auto mode. You can't permanently lock your high beams out though when you're in that auto mode, so you can just flash them. If you wanted to permanently lock your high beams out, drop down 1 level into your headlamp mode. You can push away to turn them on, pull towards you to turn them off. But honestly, I just recommend keeping yourself in that auto mode instead the majority of the time. And then you can also turn on your front or your rear fog lamps as well. Stick along the right-hand side is going to be for your wipers. So you've got different options there. When you're in the 1 up mode, you could then use the little rocker switch in the middle to say how fast the rain is hitting your windshield. There's a button on the tip of that right stick in order to be able to adjust out your rear wiper as well. You're going to pull towards you for the front wiper fluid, and you're going to push away in order to get that rear wiper fluid going instead. And there are so many different buttons. The ones along the left-hand side here are going to be for your adaptive cruise control system. So you've got the adaptive cruise there, and there's this little icon along the very bottom. That's for Pro Pilot Assist. With it turned on, if the vehicle recognizes your lane markings with the cruise control system on, it's going to keep you perfectly balanced in your lane. So even if you take your hands off the steering wheel for up to 12 seconds-ish, in my experience, it's going to keep you perfectly balanced as long as it recognizes the lane markings. If you've opted for turning the Pilot Assist off, it's just going to be regular adaptive cruise. So when you hit the button, that's going to essentially turn on the adaptive cruise at whatever your current set speed is. So if you're traveling at 37 kilometers an hour, turn it on, it's going to hold you at 37. You could then push up in order to get to the nearest 5 or 0. So 37 would become 40, 45, 50, etc., or 35, 30, 25, etc. there. You could then push and hold up or push and hold down to get to the nearest 1. So it's going to bring you to 38, 39, 40 by pushing and holding that way instead. And then you've got a distance indicator. So it's how close or far are you away from the vehicle that's in front of you. So there are 4 unique levels. And I want you to think of that one almost like a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi type of a rule for how close or far you are away from that car in front of you. Level 1 is okay on residential streets or in stop and go traffic. And you might want to be at level 2, maybe level 3, depending on your own comfort level for regular highway traffic. But that's going to come down to a matter of personal preference. But if you want to see the adaptive cruise control system in action, check down in the description of this video. Buttons along the right-hand side, you've got a few different options here. So there's a voice command prompt where you'd be able to do things like change songs, radio stations, navigate using your voice. If your phone is hooked up over Apple CarPlay, you could do a longer button push and hold instead, and that would activate your Siri assistant. From there, there's this little pages button. So you can hit that in order to blank out the screen. But if you had an active route going, it would show you turn-by-turn directions. So if we have a route going right now, so let's just randomly select one of these options here and start. Watch this. You've got your map available here off to the right side, but you've got full map and cluster available here too. So very useful. And then if you hit that pages button again, that's going to bring you into a turn-by-turn direction. So if you'd like something a little bit more subtle, you've got that flexibility. From there, you can change between songs or stations if you'd like to. You could go up or down this way in order to get volume going as well. And then you've got this little guy. So this button is going to bring up your trip counter. So you've got your trip manual counter or your trip auto counter from the last time the vehicle was filled up. So you've got options there. You can reset your manual counter by doing a push and hold on the stick on the right-hand side. So there's a button there. But you can see what's going on with your total trip counter. And as we move in, a few other things there. So you've got your total odometer reading along the very bottom. And then on the screen itself, there are a boatload of other options. So you can see what's going on with your speed. You've got a digital speed there, whether or not your headlamps are on, off, etc. If your lane keeping system was turned on, your current outside temperature, if your seatbelts were on for you, the passenger, it's essentially whatever there's weight recognized inside of the vehicle, and then your tachometer along the right-hand side. If you were in the plug-in hybrid, this would essentially be split in half, with the lower half being for your regenerative braking gauge versus the upper half being for your power gauge. So more like your traditional tachometer instead. You can see what's going on for your current gear. So whether that's park, reverse, neutral, drive, whatever the case may be, or into a manual mode, and then park from there. You've also got a current trip counter along the very bottom, and then your fuel gauge. So you can see your fuel this way versus total kilometers or miles to empty instead. Through the infotainment system, you've got the flexibility to be able to adjust that out as well. So you've got a series of different options for driving controls and things like that. If we hop into controls, you'd have the flexibility of adjusting things out. So along the very bottom, you'd be able to adjust this out. So whether there's nothing showing there for your trip information, auto versus your manual mode instead. And then as we navigate through here, we're looking for system. Then you've got units. And then units, you've got distance and volume, and then your speed are the two that you're going to look at. So you can be in either metric or imperial, and that's going to change out your trip counters along the very bottom there. But then you can also change out your gauges to either miles or kilometers per hour instead. So that's going to be a matter of preference, but you've got the number of different options available here too. And then there was one other one in controls, and that's going to be for an available head-up display. So it's not standard across the V60 lineup, but if your Volvo had it, boom, head-up display. So you can see there your head-up display with an active route going. It would show you your turn-by-turn directions there as well as you start to drive. It's actually a really neat setting. You do have the flexibility of being able to adjust it out. So if you wanted to adjust your brightness, the height, whatever the case may be, you've got the flexibility to do it. It's flickering right now. It doesn't look like that in person. And then if you're wearing a pair of sunglasses, you can see it as long as you're in maximum brightness as well. With the driver's seat as far down as it's going to go, I think that's as far down. That's as far down, okay. So with the seat as far down as it's going to go, I've got a good amount of space here. So what am I looking at? 4.5-ish inches of headspace. I'm 6 feet tall, so if you're 6'4", you'll probably comfortably be able to sit inside of this ride. Taking a peek at the infotainment system inside of the Volvo V60. This is the mild hybrid version. There is a plug-in hybrid version as well, but the functionality is going to be exactly the same. So let's dive in and I'll show you everything that you need to know. First thing, along the top left-hand side, you've got your current connection level. There's this little tab along the top that you can swipe down in order to hop into your profiles. So very useful if you've got multiple people driving the vehicle. So you can add in additional profiles and you can lock it out to a pattern or a pin, which I'll show you as we hop into the settings. But the benefit here is that it's going to remember the phones that you've connected if you've searched for previous addresses, all of your presets and things like that. So if multiple people are driving the vehicle, you definitely want to set up additional profiles. And then you've also got any sort of notifications that were available. Along the top, it's your current driver profile with the current time. And then you've got a little tray display here. You can hop in to get to an icon view instead. So what I want you to think of these ones as more like a quick launch, because you can get here to get to all of the additional apps that are kind of line by line. But as we hop into this home page instead, you can swipe across to get to those same apps if you'd like to, see additional options that are available. And then if you swipe the opposite way of whatever the active application is, you'll get some additional options. So for maps, you'd be able to look at things. For radio, you can see there we can hop in, swipe across to save a station, play, pause, whatever the case may be. Go to other options there. If your phone was connected, you have additional options. Pushing back home, or going to this option, I should say, brings you into your little icon tray where you've got the flexibility of doing a press and hold if you wanted to adjust these icons out a little bit. So if you wanted to customize it and make it your own, you've got the flexibility to do it. So you can drag and drop any of these options to any other location. And then there are a series of different options, so you may not have some of these apps installed on your device. As a default, it's just going to be Google Maps, but you may not have things like your Messages, Google Assistant. You may not have Waze installed there as well. So there are some apps that you can add in through the PlayStore, which I'll show you in just a minute as we navigate through. Along the very bottom here, you can also press to get to your 360 camera, where you've got your 360 view. You can hop in to see what's going on in front of you, side by side, in behind you, etc. You could disable the parking sensor, so the beeping that you get as you get closer to obstacles. You can turn off the auto brake, so as you're backing up, if there's an obstacle behind you, it's going to slam on its brakes for you. And then you can hit this icon in order to get to some other options. So you've got your wheel guidelines. Do you want those ones showing up? So as you go to rotate the wheel, those are the guidelines there, and it's the volume of the beeping. You've got the option for heated and ventilated first row seats. So if those options were available for you, they would show up. You've also got a heated steering wheel, and you can adjust out what's going on along the passenger side here too. From there, you've got your climate control settings. So you've got your max AC, your windshield defrosters, things like that. Do you want heat going to windshield face feet? Some sort of Frankenstein combination of the above. You can adjust your fan speed. You can adjust the climate here as well. If the passenger is different from the driver, you can link them up from there. You can hit this in order to get to some additional options. So you could have your driver's seat come on automatically, passenger seat, heated seats coming on, etc. when you start the vehicle up. Do you want those starting, yay or nay? And then actually there are some other useful ones here. There's rear available as well. So if you wanted to control the rear climate, you'd have the flexibility to be able to do it. And then there are air purification options available here too. And then a series of different general settings. There are a lot of different things, but I'll touch on that one last. So let's go line by line and I'll show you everything you need to know. Starting off, Google Maps is going to be the default because this is an Android device, so Google will be the option there. You've got the option of searching for addresses. So you can search for latitude first, longitude second if you'd like to. Point of interest icons are available there too. And you could swipe across, get to any of these options. And then you can start or you can add a stop in. You can look at the different routes available too. So if there are different ways you can get to your end destination, you can avoid certain things on the route. So if you wanted to avoid highways, toll roads, ferries, you'd have that flexibility as well. And then the route's actively going. You can hit here in order to see your end destination as well. So again, looking at those different route options, you can search for something else. So let's say if you wanted to stop at a gas station first, you've got the flexibility to do it. So all you're going to do is find a random station. There we go. If your phone was hooked up, you'd be able to call them, and then you could add in a stop. And there we go. You can see we've got that other location added in, so we're just going to confirm, and you're set to go. You can exit out if you wanted to either remove the next stop or fully exit navigation instead. So that's going to cancel the route. And you've got the places that we've searched for. You can hit the gear icon here if you wanted to show your satellite view instead. So if you prefer that terrain view, you can look at global route options for avoiding highways, toll roads, and ferries, and offline maps. Benefit of the offline maps is that if you're going somewhere where you're not going to have data connection, you can download maps right to the vehicle, and then it would just be a slower GPS route instead. From there, you can mute out notifications. So do you want to get full alerts? So as you come to an upcoming turn, it's going to tell you, give you a beep. You're going to get nothing or just a beep. You can change your heading there as well. So do you want that north up view, etc.? Different perspective views. And then there's this little guy along the top right. And that's going to give you the flexibility of signing into your Google account. And the big benefit there is that if you've been using your phone to search for addresses, you'd then be able to pull up all of the previously searched for addresses that you've looked for on your phone. It's actually really neat. You've got full pinch to zoom capabilities, zoom in and out this way, recenter it back on you, and back home. You've also got Waze available here too, and Waze is definitely my favorite app when I'm driving. I typically use it off of Apple CarPlay, but it's nice that you've got the flexibility of downloading the app right to the device instead. You have to log into the PlayStore to do that. You've got your Google Assistant there, and that's going to let you do things like change songs, radio stations, navigate using your voice, adjust the climate using your voice and the fan speed. You can also do a button push on the steering wheel to do it that way instead, or just say, "Hey Google," in order to launch into your assistant that way. You've got radio, and as a default, you're just going to have radio, Bluetooth, Sirius, and then YouTube on there as well. So these other options were added in afterwards through the Play Store. But on your radio, you've got every station that's available based off of your geographic area. If you're new to an area, you can easily save in stations. So you see there how there's a star next to these. So if you want to, you can hit the star icon if you wanted to remember all of your favorite stations. So if you've got stations that you tend to listen to the most, you can navigate through. Some good ones here that I'm highlighting as we go. And then once you've saved all of the stations that you like, all you're going to do, you can hit the favorites icon there and see them all. You could unstar them in order to remove it as a favorite. You can hit the right seek button along the steering wheel as well to change between all of your songs, stations, etc. You can hit up here if you wanted to save. You could change between different stations that way.
Good, we can give you
play pause that way as well. Then you've got the volume rocker down the middle too. So when you're listening to regular radio, you go to play pause. It's not going to actually pause the radio station. It essentially just acts as a mute instead. And then down from there. You've got your Bluetooth media player. So if your phone is connected, that would show up as an available option. There's SiriusXM available as well. So you've got all of your channels, same idea. You can star them in if you wanted to save them as a preset. You can look at your different favorited stations, look at category views. So if you wanted to listen to pop, rock, etc., you've got that available. Pushing up gets you to the album artwork. You can search for a station, look at all of your additional settings. So if you wanted to set up SiriusXM, that's how you're going to do it. And back home. You don't have AM radio inside of the vehicle, but you do have things like adding in Spotify. YouTube is available here as well. And it's not just YouTube music. It's full YouTube video playback that you can watch as you are parked. And it's strictly when you're parked. So if you want to, you can search. Oh, helps if I spell things right. Oh, just realized that I did not spell that right, but benefits of YouTube there. But there are some really good videos on the channel here for the Volvo lineup and for a number of other manufacturers. So I'll link down to the description of this video for some other walkthroughs, like some key fob tricks that you can do utilizing the steering wheel cluster and things like that as well. But you can watch full videos right on this device, which is amazing. Back home, you've got Car Fireplace, which is an app that you're going to download through the Play Store, and Spotify and a few others. The next up is going to be adding in a phone. So you can see there, no phones are currently connected. So we're going to pair a new device, and we're looking for Volvo V60 CC on your device. So all you're going to do is pull up your phone's Bluetooth, and we're looking for, here we go, V60 CC to pop up. And we're going to connect there. Pin numbers match up, so let's pair and pair. And then from here, you'd be able to pair for phone calls or for media as well. So you could kind of do a little bit of a mix and match. And then on your phone, it's asking, do you want to allow contacts and favorites to sync up? This is not my car, so I'm going to say no to that one. And we are connected over Bluetooth right now. We're just going to cancel there and continue. And okay. And we are fully connected. So if you were to hop out, and let's hop into phone now. So you can see the phone is connected. You've got your favorites, recent contacts, keypad. If multiple phones were connected, you could swap, or you could hit this option to change out the start screen. So when you first launch into your phone here, it's which one of these options do you want it to default to? But you could start dialing in this way if you want to, then button push in order to get back home. Then you do have the option for Apple CarPlay inside of the ride, and you do have to be connected over USB in order to make it happen. Strictly going to be USB Type-C. So all you're going to do is plug yourself in down the center stack there, and opposite end of the cable, just plugging ourselves into the phone. There we go. Now, if you're running into CarPlay connectivity issues, like it's not actually working for you, check down in the description of this video. I've put together some pretty comprehensive videos explaining how to fix CarPlay if you're running into any issues. But on the phone, it's saying, do you want to allow CarPlay while the phone is locked? Yes, we want to allow that. Otherwise, when the phone is locked, CarPlay just wouldn't work. But you can see we're fully connected to CarPlay. You can hit this icon in order to get to your little home screen. Back to this icon view, you can swipe across either way as well. Then, this is essentially the home screen. So you've got your current map, a search bar, and then whichever audio application you're listening to. Along the bottom, you can see your icon view or the home screen, your current time, which map was open last, which audio application was open last, which miscellaneous application is open last, and then your connection level. You do have Apple Maps, Google Maps, and Waze available inside of Apple CarPlay. I personally use Waze though, like I was mentioning, so I typically use Waze on CarPlay. And the big reason why is because as you start to drive, if people have seen that cops are pulling people over, if there are accidents on the highway, construction, things like that, people are good at marking off the map, giving you a heads up, and you can mark things off yourself. So if you see a cop pulling people over, there are hazards, block lanes, and things like that, you've got that flexibility. So that's my go-to. You've got YouTube Music, Live One's a radio app, Hoopla's a library app, podcasts are available there as well. So there are a lot of different options available here, including the flexibility of customizing. So if you wanted to change out your wallpaper, you could change out the appearance and things like that. It's kind of neat. Then when you're connected to CarPlay, if you do a long button push and hold on the steering wheel, that's going to start up your Siri Assistant. If you do a short button push, that's going to launch into the assistant for the vehicle. So long button push and hold is for your Siri Assistant, short is for the vehicle assistant instead. You can hop back home and then easily get back into CarPlay that way. And then on your phone, if you jump into your settings, and then general, and then CarPlay, find your vehicle, you can customize. So if you don't like the look of the layout of the icons, let's say if you prefer to use Waze and you want it at the top, along with your podcasts, all you're going to do is just grab the little hamburger icon, and that's going to let you slide things around into any position. Anything with a minus next to it, you can remove it. So if you're not going to listen to certain apps or use certain apps, you can remove them from the screen. It saves them in at the bottom of your phone though, so you could add them back in if you wanted to. And if you've played around with the layout too much, not crazy about what you've done, hit reset, and that just brings you back to the factory default layout there instead. Straightforward. And then since we're a USB connection, in order to disconnect from CarPlay, all you're gonna do is unplug there and CarPlay is disconnected. Hopping back into your phone just reconnects you over Bluetooth, and you can swap out in order to disconnect the phone again from there. But that's how you set up iPhone devices inside of the V60. Setting up Android devices is the exact same process. So if you didn't have the screen pulled up, all you're gonna do, hop into your phone, swap devices, and you're just going to pair a new device. And what we're doing is turning our Bluetooth on and we're waiting for our phone to show up. Do you want to pair it for your phone or for media? Either or, just gonna hit next for both. And it'll take a second there. Pin numbers match up, so we'll hit OK. And there we go. Do I want to allow access to my contacts and messages? This is not my car, so I'm saying no to that one. And we're fully connected to the Galaxy now. So if we hop back home, hop into the phone, you can see there, I'm now connected to the Galaxy. I can hit this in order to change my contact order, swap phones out, so if I wanted to be connected to the iPhone instead. Now, one thing, this is an Android device. This is an Android device, but the Volvo unfortunately does not support Android Auto. So that's one downside to the Volvo lineup, but you can get the majority of apps that you'd use anyways through the PlayStore. There are obviously going to be some limitations. That's one thing that I would like to see changed, is to have Android Auto support, but you can at least hook your phone up over Bluetooth if you wanted to make phone calls. And then One thing, you've got a few options here. So let's say if you wanted to have one phone connected for phone calls, but one phone connected for media, you can do that. So you can be hooked up to Apple CarPlay, but not to Apple CarPlay and, well, Android Auto is not available, but for your phones here, you can do a mix and match here. So you can have these connected in any way that you'd like. You can hit edit devices as well if you wanted to scrap or forget devices. So it's just a matter of hitting the little garbage icon and back. No phones are connected, but it's that easy setting up Android and iPhone devices inside of the V60. Hopping back home, you've got messages. If your phone is connected there, there's an owner's manual. So if this video didn't help out, or if you're getting some weird messages inside of the cluster screen, like you're not sure what certain symbols mean, you can look through and see all of these different options. A lot of different options there too. And then you've got the PlayStore. So the PlayStore is where you're going to go if you wanted to be able to download apps. And all you have to do is sign in. It's straightforward to do. So you're going to have a QR code pop up here in a second. You're just going to scan it on your phone. And then you're just going to follow through in order to log into your account. And it'll take a second here. And yes, I want to sign in. Look at that. Fully signed in right now. And just going to hit done. And you can now download different apps to the device. So there are already a series of different apps that are here, but hopping into the Play Store, if you wanted to download games and other things like that, you'd have the flexibility to be able to do it. So if you wanted to watch movies and TV and things like that while you're parked, you wanted to play games, you'd have the flexibility to do it. There aren't a ton of different games that are available on the device, but there are quite a few useful ones that are available here though too. And then just back home from there. So if you wanted to customize the screen a little bit, you've got the flexibility. There is actually one app that I would recommend if you wanted to listen to USB audio, and that's going to be Audio Wagon. So this one, really great app. I always recommend that's one that you go to. So if you wanted to play USB audio inside of your device, you want to make sure you add Audio Wagon to it as well. But outside of that, Waze is a good one. YouTube will be there automatically if you listen to Spotify, things like that. But you can customize this if you'd like to. And from here, next up is going to be all of the settings. And there are so many different settings that are available. So starting off with our driving assistance, you've got off-road mode that's available here. And off-road mode's just going to give you better traction handling overall. The lane keeping aid, if you start to veer over into another lane without signaling, it's going to nudge you back into your lane. There's a little message, or a little icon, I should say, on the very top of the cluster screen there, and that's going to be for your lane keeping system. So if that one was toggled on or off, I recommend just for general safety though, keeping it on. There's your road sign speed information. So again, whether or not that one shows up, and that's going to show up inside of the cluster screen. Steering wheel, do you want it to be firm versus more loosey-goosey? Sound options are available here too. So do you want a studio sound, a stage, or more of a room, so ambiance? Do you want it focused on the driver, people in the back seat, people in the front seat, etc.? It's actually really neat. And then you've got the flexibility of adjusting out your treble mid-range bass. This is a terrible setup. You don't want something like that. What I've found in Volvo vehicles so far is that the treble down a few points, the bass cranked a few points, and the woofer up a point gives good audio, in my opinion. But what I recommend here is listen to your favorite song and then play with these settings until you hear something that works beautifully for your ears. And then speaker-wise, you've got 3 different options inside of this ride. So there's either a 10 speaker, a 14 speaker, or this 15 speaker Bowers and Wilkins system. There we go. And we've got a series of different options here. So the audio that we're listening to here is just coming out of the microphone. So there's no post-processing done whatsoever afterwards. The audio inside of this ride is so good. So good. And hold on, let's go through, and I want to go away. Get out of here. Shoo fly. Shoo fly. Oh, look at that. You can adjust all of your volumes here. But I actually want to go through, and let's go to a different song. Actually, yeah, that one works. Tell me that I'm never gonna make it. They want me to do something I can make. The audio inside of this ride is so good. It obviously helps that it's a 15 speaker system, but even still the 14 is good. I was in a 10 recently as well, and no complaints there either. Let's see some additional controls, including the flexibility of being able to fold down your headrests. So what you're gonna do, It's such a random little thing. And then there's also the wiper service position. So with that one enabled, it's going to lock the wipers into an up position. So if you need to change the wipers out yourself, you've got the flexibility to be able to do it. You can have your exterior mirrors auto tilt when they're in reverse as well. So if you have that setting enabled, you shift yourself into reverse, the mirrors are going to automatically tilt. I know some people aren't crazy about that one. I'm one of the ones that aren't crazy about it, so you can disable it. Do you want your mirrors to automatically fold in when you lock the door? Do you want your mirrors to automatically dim? So if there's a donkey in behind you flashing their high beams, it's going to show up a little bit darker in your side view mirrors along with your rear view, which is kind of neat. Rear seat reminder, with that one turned on, when you go to turn the vehicle off, it's going to remind you to check the back seat just in case you've forgotten somebody back there. Do you want to get feedback when you go to lock the vehicle? When you go to unlock the doors, do all doors become unlocked, or is it strictly the driver's door? And then there's options for your trip displays. So you've got 3 different options available for the display. So manual mode versus auto mode versus none. So with none, that means that inside of the cluster screen, nothing's going to show up, versus auto versus your trip manual counter instead. You can reset your manual counter. There's a button on the tip of the left stick. If you push and hold that, that's going to let you reset. If you hit this little button in the middle of the steering wheel, that's going to let you jump into your trip counter. So you can see your trip manual counter. So that's essentially your trip 1. Let's see, you can adjust out the interior brightness. Do you want a welcome light when you first walk up to the vehicle as well? Then you can adjust out things on your profile. So you can edit the existing owner's name. You can say whether or not there's a connected key. You can also do a screen lock, so whether that's a pattern or a pin. So again, if you've got all of your previously searched for addresses, all of your contacts and things like that that have been synced up to the vehicle, you can lock it out so people can't just look through. There's the option for a care key as well. So as your secondary key, you're lending it out to friends, whatever the case may be. Through your care key, you'd also have the flexibility of being able to limit the speed out so people can't go past a certain speed. There's basic privacy information, so you can choose to share your location data, basic privacy settings. There's an ad manager here. I personally have never seen an ad inside of any Volvo vehicle, but it still is there, so that's something you should be aware of. And that's the basics there, nothing overly exciting. Same thing, basic Google information there, ad manager, password assistant, etc. And then you've got a series of system info. So if you wanted to adjust out your language, you've got the flexibility to do it, and there are so many different languages that are available. It's one of the benefits of it being a Google device. You've got so many options here. You can adjust the date and time. And you'll notice that a few of these things are grayed out, and that's because we're in the auto mode. So if you deselect that, you can then manually select the date or the time if you'd like to. I always just go auto there. And then the time zone. The only time you want to go manual for the time zone is if you straddle a time zone and you're constantly flipping from one time zone to the other. You could manually set whatever time zone that you'd like to instead, and then just lock it in. And then do you want to use the military time instead? So 12 versus 24-hour mode. And then there are some reset options. So you could reset Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, etc. So if that's giving you options, if you're selling your vehicle, you can do a full factory reboot as well. And then there are a series of different buttons under the screen, but there are 2 that are important. So this one here, as I mentioned, so that brings you back to this little kind of like home screen instead. But if you wanted to be able to wipe the screen down, because let's say if it's getting a little bit too messy, too greasy, whatever the case may be, you press and hold for a few seconds in order to enter screen cleaning mode. You can just wipe the screen down without accidentally fiddling with buttons. Button push and hold again for a few seconds in order to be able to bring the screen to life again. Now, if you're ever running into any issues with your phone, if your maps aren't working properly, or if you're just running into issues, it's slow, laggy, whatever the case may be, you can also soft reboot the screen. In order to do the reboot, all you're going to do is push and hold this button for about 15 to 20 seconds or so. So it's going to go into this mode, just keep on pushing and holding. And after, again, about 20 seconds, eventually the screen's just going to go off. And there we go. You can see there, it's reset both the cluster screen and the infotainment system. So that's where you're going to go, and that's what you're going to do if you're running into any issues with the screen. So like I said, CarPlay is giving you issues, it's not connecting properly, whatever the case may be. You just do a very long push and hold on that button along the very middle in order to soft reboot the screen, because you can do the hard reset that I showed you earlier, or you can just do the soft reboot this way. You've got this crystal shifter as well. And the crystal shifter is not standard across the board, but it feels good in the hand, and lit up at night, it looks so good. And you've got your basics, so your park, reverse, neutral, drive, and then you can drop down into a manual mode instead, where you could then slide left or right in order to be able to adjust gears out. If you've never used a manual mode before, or if you're not 100% sure on how best to use it, check down in the description of this video. I put together a walkthrough on paddle shifters, but the same principle applies to a manual hand shifter instead. You've got your start-stop system, your parking brake, the auto hold system as well, and then this guy, a closable slider too with some driftwood. Popping it open, you've got some cup holders along with a little 12-volt power point, no cigarette lighter adapter, and then up overhead here, baby storage as well. Inside here, you've got a decent amount of space with 2 USB Type-C power points. So there's one data, one strictly for charging. No wireless charge pad inside of this ride. You've got that same driftwood style that follows through the dash here. Nice little metallic highlight there. Glove box that's non-lockable. Visibility overall is great. There's an auto-dimming rear view mirror that has the HomeLink system. So if you've got a garage door opener at home, you can program it in. There are basic controls, so your SOS mode, control your cabin lights, and then there's also a little control for the sunshade. And then you can button push to create a little breeze, or swipe away to open this up the majority of the way. Secondary swing. Lowe's going to open it up that last little bit. And the outside profile on it looks pretty good. And then just a swipe to close. Simple. I like the black headliner here. But yeah, like I said, the white seats, while the interior color combination here works, it's just the seats show dirt a little too easy for my liking. You've got a little ticket receipt holder on the inside there, a little vanity mirror that has a light as well. And then this, unfortunately, does not stretch. So you're potentially going to get a little bit of sun in your eyes this way, but it blocks the majority of it. Cool little highlight. You've got this little guy. So little ticket receipt holder. So if you've paid for parking, you could throw that there. There's an assist panel along the top as well. Oh, it's nice. Whew. So you are looking at 5 seats inside of this ride. There's same highlights here. So you've got a speaker there, basic controls for your windows, some storage high and low. Ooh, inside. With the driver's seat set up for myself being 6 feet tall, I've got a good amount of knee space, foot space, and head space. With me sitting fully upright, I'm about 3-ish inches of space. So not a ton, but I can at least fit on the outboard seats. The middle seat, okay, so there's a huge hump in the middle there. So, I mean, if I drew the short straw, I could do it. The middle seat is not very comfortable by any stretch, but I get a little bit more headspace though. So if you need about an extra inch of space, that is available. The seats are locked into place though, so there's no sliding them forwards or backwards or reclining them whatsoever. You've got a little handle, hook, and a light along the passenger side and along the driver's side. So you've got that little light, handle, hook, etc. And then behind the seat, you can see there's also a little mesh mat pocket behind both sides. So driver, passenger side. You've got your basic HVAC controls here too. So you can adjust things out. You can turn on your heated second row seats if you've got them. And it's strictly heated on the outboard. So the middle seat here would never be heated. But it's currently locked out right now, so turned off. You can adjust out your fan speed, and you can have it set different for each side. So you're technically quad zone climate control inside of this ride, because you can have it different for the driver, passenger side in the first, and for the second row, which is kind of neat. Mention your basic HVAC controls, and then there are 2 USB Type-C power points down there too. If you've got kids, anchor points are there, tethers are behind the seats, and then there's some cup holders that are built into the seat as well. I don't know what it is. I like that, it's kind of cool. Oh, and then there's also a little pass-through for skis. Useful. The rear end of the V60, I'm just not a fan of the style. Like the wagon look has never appealed to me. But I'm gonna try to remain a little bit open-minded here. Overall, it is simple. You've got the same matte black highlight on the lower part of the bumper, and there's a nice little cross-country badge that's highlighted right in the middle as well. There are LED tail lamps inside of the ride, and the blinker setup at night does look pretty good. You've got all of your basic badges in the back. And technology-wise, there's the reverse park sensing system, along with the backup camera and the rear wiper. So those are all things that are going to be standard across the board. You can actually tow inside of this ride too. You are maxing out, regardless of the engine choice, at 2,000 pound towing capacity. So if you need to go higher, you could look at something like the XC60 if you really wanted to. And then following with Volvo's typical style, you're not going to see any of the exhaust tips. So no pipes at all are visible. They're right underneath the ride. Nice and subtle, small detail, kind of cool. And then getting into the trunk of the V60 can be done so many different ways. There's a button to the left-hand side of the steering wheel. You can utilize the key fob to do it. Just underneath the L in Volvo, there's also a button there that you can push. And then there's also the option for foot-activated liftgate. As long as you've got the key fob on you, all you're going to do towards the back end is just kick. Power! I love it. The downside of the foot-activated liftgate, though, is that if the sensors are covered in snow, mud, ice, etc., they're not going to work. But you saw there are so many ways you can get into this trunk. Feature-wise, there's a little light off to the left and then a little cargo net. Off to the right-hand side is a 12-volt power point. And then there's the little cargo tray here. If you tend to go places in the wintertime, or if you've got a doggo you're going to have in the back, you could always get a thermoplastic rubber tray aftermarket. It's so much easier to clean that down in comparison to this carpeted mat instead. But lifting up, you've got access to the mini spare tire with your jack off to the right side. So if you wanted to, you could change the tire yourself. All of the components are there. But one of the nice things about being a Volvo owner is that you've got access to roadside assistance. And that's good for things like tire changing, fuel delivery, winching services, lockout, and so many other things. It's just one of the added benefits of being a Volvo owner. But like I said, the jack is there if you wanted to do it yourself. Folding down the second row seats inside of the ride is straightforward. If you can reach it from the trunk, you can fold it down from there, but if you don't need to get into the trunk, you can easily do it from the second row as well. And it's not a completely flat fold, but it's pretty dang close. And there is a great amount of cargo space inside of this ride. I would say that's one thing that the wagon absolutely has going for it. And it's a 60-40 bench as well, so 40 drivers, 60 passenger. And the measurements that you're looking at specifically behind the first row are going from right where that trunk door would close to just in behind the little console armrest between the first row seats. So if the driver's seat, passenger seat were forwards, backwards, you might gain or lose a little bit of extra space. Closing the liftgate can be done so many ways. You can use the key fob, there's the button here, and for foot activated power, you can always just kick in order to close instead. Then, filling up fuel inside of the V60 is done just along the driver's side. One nice thing is that when the car's locked, the fuel door is also locked. So you have to unlock in order to open it up. And it is a capless system that's got anti-siphon technology built in. And one other thing is that minimum manufacturer's recommendation for the V60 and really every Volvo vehicle is a 91 octane. So that's something you do have to take into account when buying your vehicle, is that with Volvos, you are going to be spending a little bit more in fuel, but you get really good fuel economy at the same time. But a 65 kilometer trip picking this ride up and coasting on the highway, because it's a mild hybrid, I was averaging around 7.5 liters per 100. You could look at the plug-in hybrid version of the Volvo lineup instead. I was in the XC60 plug-in last week, 65 kilometer electric range. I think I was averaging 3.5 liters per 100, which is amazing. So if you go shorter distance trips, a plug-in could be for you. But regardless, you just want to make sure not to damage that engine and use the 91 octane inside of this ride. A little en route handling here. Impressive. Very impressive handling. Very nice. Some Volvo cars have the option for an air suspension system. Like I was in the XC60 last week and that had the optional air suspension system. And it just led to a ride that was incredibly quiet and just it handled so nicely. This one, the V60, unfortunately doesn't have it, but still, the ride quality is good at highway speeds. There's a little bit of road noise. Like it's not like it's nothing that you couldn't live with. And handling that you get, because this is a lower car, is solid. And the turning radius here, ooh, all right. Turning radius is pretty good. Back up to speed, but yeah, the handling here. Since this is a wagon, it sits down lower like a traditional, like a sedan would in comparison to a crossover or an SUV, which means that you don't have as high of a risk of a rollover. Handles pretty nicely there. Cool, no complaints. And that was everything you needed to know about the Volvo V60. You can find all of the build details for this Volvo down in the description, along with links off to Volvo Canada and US. But if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and until I see you next time, take care.